Hello, everybody. I hope you all had a great week. Mine was okay. I am joined once again by my co host and good friend, Serp Kerp. Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah. This is just a topic that's been on my mind, obviously, recently.
Also, for those of you, and let me just see if I can, I'll have to just get the link. Serp has put out his new book, Piss Earth. So definitely give that a check. Let me just, while we're talking, I'll just put a link to that down in the chat. I think it's important to support content whenever somebody in
Oh,
this circles decides to put something out. Um, yeah.
thank you.
Okay, so to just start off, or you know what, you want to say something about Piss Earth, just to.
Um, I don't know. The thing, Piss Earth is it's my first book really that I'm giving out for my audience here. I was selling it as kind of like 1984 splatterpunk. And when I said that, that is not very a good description of it because that means people think it's gory. I meant kind of like the idea of a desotopia taken to the extreme and made just all out of control, the most horrible piss earth, if you will, that you can imagine. But it's definitely an eclectic book.
but it's
And
also
a lot
like
of
half
people are
of it
saying it's
is
very funny.
like half of it is also just extremely uh what would the term be, esoteric stuff about
Yeah,
Gnosticism and the demiurge and stuff.
yeah. I'm a very big Philip K. Dick fan, and
Yeah,
in a
this
lot of ways,
definitely
the book
has.
is a tribute to Philip K. Dick.
You know what? I hadn't really thought of that, but it does definitely have a Philip K. Dick vibe to it. So I posted it there. Go support Serp. He's been putting out readings of it on his channel, and this is also partially inspired by a video he did a couple days back about nuclear proliferation. I've been meaning to do one just because of all the stuff that's been happening. So let's get into it. So before we kind of get going, do you want to maybe just kind of lay out for the audience? Maybe this is a vague question, kind of what your overall position is on the issue.
So, nuclear weapons are a double-edged sword because at one point, they offer the ability for any state to defend themselves and deter any aggression from another state. On the other hand, they if they're ever used, their power will be so decisive and destructive that it will be really catastrophic for modern civilization, resulting in a war which would have deaths likely in the millions, if not tens of millions, and which would destroy the infrastructure of the country that was hit by them forever. And then the other issue of nuclear wars is that, or nuclear weapons, is because of this deterrence that ever since nuclear weapons have been developed since World War II, there's not been a great um, power
Conventional
war.
war?
Conventional great power war since the Second World War because of nuclear weapons. And while it's good that like war is obviously a scourge on humanity, and war will end eventually due to Christ and the world to come. But the issue is that without war, we end up getting stuck in this perpetual stalemate situation where a lot of issues don't break out, and are never truly resolved. And so that's also kind of problematic for society as well. But nuclear weapons, if they are to be seen as a threat to humanity in a general way, the proliferation or the increase of nuclear weapons, whether that means one country gaining larger and larger stockpiles or more and more independent states having them, presents a danger, and that the more states that would have nuclear weapons, the likelihood of a nuclear war happening becomes more and more likely because there are more and more routes for that war to happen.
Yeah, yeah, I would generally agree. This is something that I used to be more on the mad side, like that I thought it was worth the risk of having nuclear weapons to prevent like World War III. But as time goes on, I think the term I've heard is nuclear conservatism. And that is, I think that stuff like the anti-proliferation treaty, non-proliferation treaty, the test ban restrictions are good. Generally speaking, I just think the fewer the better. The fewer in existence, the fewer delivery systems, the less likely something is going to go catastrophically wrong. So even if we can't necessarily get rid of them, anything to kind of minimize them or prevent their spread is important. There's also just the thing that I feel like a lot of this is about building a culture of control where there's a certain taboo around using them. And I find even when there's like not treaties actively enforced, like Russia recently withdrew from New START or suspended its participation, but continued to abide by its um, uh, terms. I think it's just important to keep that going if for no other reason.
Yeah, definitely. The more nuclear weapons there are, the more devastating such a war can be. And by having, during the Cold War, by having these bilateral relations to kind of regularize America and Soviet and then America and Russian relations, to like have safety rails on them to try and prevent a nuclear exchange, is definitely important in ensuring peace.
Okay, so before we get into this, I'm going to spring a question on you. What is Trump doing? Go.
Um, with nukes.
Just in general, on
Okay,
like
well,
his foreign, what's going on with the whole
I
foreign
I
policy.
personally think that what he's doing is that he's obsessed with getting a Nobel Peace Prize. And so he's abandoned realism and he's not adopted kind of a generic liberalism.
Mm-hmm.
He's more of moved in like a generic liberalism that Biden or Obama or Bush would have. He's more moved into exhausting all his energy onto being a negotiator on the global stage and trying to get all the wars around the world to end, whether that be a border war between Thailand and Cambodia, or whether that be the Rwanda invading the lawless Congo and trying to set up proxy state, like proxy micronations there,
Mm-hmm.
or that be Gaza, or that be Ukraine. And so obviously the biggest I don't even know how you would end the war in Sudan other than I guess the United Nations coming in and trying to like provide safe
I
passage for the
almost
people
think it
being
would be
genocided.
partition at this point. I
Yeah, you just have to make Darfur. You should allow the rapid support forces to create a Darfur state, and then have like the United Nations come in and escort the people that are being genocided out and settle them in Sudan proper. I guess I don't know what else to do, but he hasn't really focused on that. But he's definitely been focusing on Israel, which is it kind of
he
definitive
stopped
at this
eight
point
or
that it
nine
fell through.
wars. He stopped 8 or 9
Yeah,
wars
he
this
stopped
week.
because he's obsessed with trying to win the Nobel Peace Prize. But is Gaza fallen through definitively at this point? You
I
think?
It doesn't matter. Israel
Okay.
could use the nuclear weapon against Gaza, and if one Palestinian threw a rock at the incoming nuclear bomb, the Palestinians would have violated the truce.
Yeah,
Is
and
probably, which is barely an
yeah,
exaggeration.
and you have the public is moving more and more pro-Palestinian, and the elite in the United States is not moving an inch on the issue. And so it's starting to get dicey because this is going to lead to more and more intense popular anti-Semitism, which is not It's
And
not
want
gonna
more
it's
government
not gonna lead in
repression.
a good place. Yes, because yeah,
It's just like, okay, so just to the Trump thing. Like for me, I don't. Did he think that he was like he believed that because he had a book called The Art of the Deal Ghost written for him like 30 years ago, that meant that he was so charismatic he could just go in and tell Putin to end the war and the war would end? Is that like
I think his belief is that he's he so he's not going about it from a realist perspective, right? I mean, I guess there's like this sense of deep frustration with Trump. Like Mersheimer being frustrated with Trump's
Trump, like
international
Mearsheimer is
policy.
more frustrated than angry, and you can tell whenever he's
Yeah.
being interviewed.
And you can tell, I don't know. I don't know. I assume Ramsey Paul's not um relevant anymore, but I watch a lot of he's come back and he's been making videos again. So I've been watching him on Trump and he's really frustrated with Trump because the whole Israel thing and the whole Ukraine thing is not what he ran on to begin with. Because he could both be a realist and he could be America first at the same time and get those check marks where he won't let Ukraine to their fate because he's obsessed with ending the war as quickly as he can. And so he flip flops back and forth between trying to like create these stupid sanctioned tariff things on other countries to try and get them to put pressure on Russia, which obviously is never going to work. And then he flips and flops and like withdraws money from Ukraine, try and let them fall. But because he's going back and forth because he wants the war to end during his presidency and to get some kind of um like Nobel Peace Prize for moderating it. He's completely ineffective and it's turning into a dumb soap opera. And he's also undermining his own power because the issue is he can't compel the European powers to not give support to Ukraine. And so at the beginning, when he had the whole Alaska meeting and all this stuff, when he was trying to do this, there was this, I guess, I don't want to say, maybe I'll just say facade. There was this facade that America had the influence over Ukraine and over the European Union and other NATO partners, that he could pressure them into forcing Ukraine and the other European partners to agreeing to some kind of peace treaty, something along the lines of Istanbul Plus. But the issue is that the European powers aren't going to follow him. So now when Putin's like, okay, I agree to giving you this sweetheart deal of Istanbul Plus or whatever, which is not a good deal for Russia, well, Europe and Ukraine are not going to accept it. So he says, okay, good idea. And then he says, I need to talk to Europe. And it's not going anywhere. He's making America look weak in any kind of like.
He's bowing to Merz the Hearst, Starmer, Macron, Tusk, like the biggest losers in the world. He's
I guess
bowing
Tusk
to them.
isn't. I'm not gonna say I like Tusk, but like I don't know if Tusk is in the same
Okay, well he's bowing
ballpark of Macron
to
and
Merz,
Starmer.
Macron, and Starmer.
I think Starmer is the most unpopular prime minister in British
Yes,
history,
I
and
think Macron is the most unpopular prime minister. Sorry, president, and Merz is the most unpopular chancellor. And Kaya
I think it's
Kallas.
Schultz. Schultz is pretty.
And,
I don't know if Mertz is as bad as Schultz yet, but it'll get there.
and there's Kaya Kallas.
Which one's that?
She's the former like leader of Estonia or whatever, who's now the head of
Oh,
the EU. Who's now the
oh
EU foreign
man.
minister.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
why are they
that's.
letting the Baltic states run everything?
I don't know. The Baltic states are like, like the Chronicles of Narnia, where there's
Yeah,
like these little like pipsqueaks or whatever that like torture Aslan when he's like
yeah.
chained down.
Hmm.
That's like the Baltic states. They're like flipping the bird and mooning Russia because America has their back.
remember
They're like these little pipsqueaks.
that one general's like, yeah, we could beat Russia on our own. It was something like, but it's, to me, I just like, and I've said this a bunch in my videos, Trump ran on being, I'm the decider, I'm the alpha male, I'm going to come in and just tell these people to like fuck off. And they're just going to do what I tell them to do because I'm America. But his constant, like, Starmer comes and cries, and then he immediately can't, like, it just makes him look really weak.
Yeah, because at the beginning of these negotiations, he could create this facade that he held the whip chain over Europe and NATO, and by extension Ukraine. But you know, the longer this goes on, the more and more it seems that Europe is in control over America when it comes to the policy in Ukraine, and that Trump is the one in the backseat or the one that's the beta.
So I have a couple. Oh, sorry, go
on. But I think going backwards to talk about Trump in general, the headlines in the tabloids are not that, because like what the administration is doing is also important. You have to remember that since Trump took office, Ukraine has received a significantly less amount of aid than it did during Biden's presidency. So in a real sense, despite all the flip-flopping and the Alaska meetings and the botched Hungary meeting and all this stupid shit, he is in a sense pivoting. Even if he's not doing that as a person, the administration is pivoting to withholding a substantial amount of aid from Ukraine, which in a sense is a realist and America first policy. And the other thing is that despite people's disdain for Trump is like betraying them or betraying the right, ICE is definitely they're definitely a lot more masculine force, and that the United States is pursuing deportation and a reduction in immigration, the likes of which we have not seen since the Eisenhower administration.
I'm going to agree. Like, I think Trump's domestic policy has been pretty good, solid. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but I think generally speaking, he's been racking up a lot of wins there. The foreign policy is a dumpster fire, but I don't know. Like, I like the deploying the soldiers to deal with like out of control crime and just all the other stuff. Apparently, like, they're going after Antifa now and stuff like that. So I like that. So just my thoughts on the Trump global. Would you agree with me that Trump has a problem with not being liked by someone he's talking to?
Yeah, I think that there's this whole issue with Trump to where he's like Trump the figure is just this figure of kind of like pettiness and like not getting stuff done, and he just kind of sucks all this attention from what the administration of Trump is doing, and he's just kind of like this absorbing model for the tabloid, and he just kind of like struts his peacock feathers and gets all this attention. And I think that the big weakness of Trump is that Trump has a big mouth, and you do not, if you're in the game of international diplomacy, you do not want to be a shit talker. You don't want to have a big mouth. You want to hold your cards close to your chest, and you want to be seen as somebody that can make a deal and is a straight talker, and that you hold your, like I said, your cards to your chest, that you don't reveal your true power, and that you strengthen it. You don't act like a loudmouth and constantly embarrass yourself.
No, I mean more like if he's talking to Macron and Macron expresses displeasure with him, he will change his opinion and his position to make Macron like him in the
yeah, definitely. So like you did a very good video about this, talking about like did Labor government came to power in 24 or something, right? Okay, so like the Labor government was actively like trying to help
they sent
the Biden administration and Kamala. So like like, and it's popular. I know that you're in Canada and everything, and I know that we have other friends that are in Canada, and I've been a loudmouth about it. But the reality is that the base in America really likes it when the United States says, like, screw you, Canada, screw you, France, screw you, Britain. We have freedom, we have laws. Your human rights is a facade. It victimizes your own
Like, I thought it was
people.
based when GD Vance went to Europe and just slammed them about,
Yeah,
like,
like
Romania.
like Trump's base and the average middleman American really likes JD Vance to say Germany's a fake democracy and hate speech is garbage. And to like
Like, to make fun of
they
Britain's
don't
knife laws or whatever.
yeah, they don't like British liberalism. Like, part of, like, a huge portion of the populist base in the United States and the Republican Party, they're terrified of America turning into Britain with its knife laws and its gun laws. So when Trump, like, I mean, maybe it's bad for diplomacy if he's maintaining NATO and the EU. Like, why doesn't he just keep having this cold shoulder? It seems to make him more popular domestically. And these people already hate him. And Starmer tried to, like, help Biden and Kamala to get him out of office. Macron, like, literally makes fun of him and, like,
Oh
hates
no,
him.
these people
So
talked shit about him. They said he was Hitler. They said he tried to do a coup. They said all this, like, stuff. And once again, I mean, he threw. Apparently, he's gone back to Orban now, and it's things are good now. But Orban is literally the only person in Europe who actually stood by him.
the new guy that's taking power in Bohemia, was he pro or anti-Trump?
I don't know, actually.
Okay.
He's on the populist side, but I think there's that. I think Trump also has ADHD, or just kind of acts like. I think once he realized how complicated the whole Ukraine thing is, he kind of lost interest.
I don't think I think he's obsessed with it. I think it's the opposite. I think
Okay, well, he's not willing to put in the time to really kind of figure it out.
Yeah, I think that. Well, here's the thing: it's going to take time for Ukraine, for the writing to hit, like, the writing on the wall to get more and more apparent for Ukraine to actually lose. And so I think he's obsessed with ending the war and getting a peace treaty in the immediate. And so he doesn't follow through on just letting Ukraine, like, letting it happen. Because if he just let it happen and then just said, you know, Ukraine is this invincible army, they're going to destroy Russia in the field, and yada yada yada, and they don't even need our help, but Europe says that they got to buy our weapons because they don't have an industrial base, even though America's base is just slightly better. Like, he should just do that and just turn his back on Ukraine and let it fall. I mean, it could take a year, it could take 2 years.
Okay, so before we get, I want to go back and talk about just some of the historical stuff. But before that, I just wanted to share this. You've probably seen this, but I'm just going to read this out loud for the audience. So this is part of Trump's Government by Truth social post, which I've made very clear in the past I think is really G-slur and he should stop. So, okay, so let's hear. The United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country, which is not true. This was accomplished including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but had no choice. Russia is second and China is a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I've instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump.
They're always, like, passive aggressive, right? Like,
what is he talking?
I don't know. It doesn't even make it, like, being passive aggressive as a 79-year-old man doesn't make you seem very strong.
Well, it's okay. So people were trying to, and we'll go to this later because we had this scenario where, like, the adults in Russia had, like, a security council meeting, And they, you know what? Let me just jump ahead to that, 'cause if we're going to be talking about this, because it's kind of funny. What so like the people in Russia were trying to figure this out. Let's see here. Okay, so this was from. Sorry if I'm. We'll just get through this. So the Security Council, for those of you who don't know, is the successor to the Politburo, and it's basically the main decision-making body in Russia. So Putin had like an emergency meeting about this, and people reported, and people were they all just said we have no idea what the fuck is going on. So I'm gonna read a bit of this. Yes, Mr. President, several days ago, we received from the Russian ambassador. Our diplomats had contacted the staff of the United States National Security Council, Department of State, to clarify the substance of the controversial remarks made by Donald Trump. Let's see here. Our diplomats inquired as to the specific meaning of this statement made the previous day regarding nuclear weapons testing. In response, respondents from the White House and Department of State declined to provide a substantive reaction, arguing they would need to relay the information up the chain and contact the Russian side if and when they had an explanation. Let's see here. So, like, the Russians are panicking over this because they don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, okay, so my interpretation, as best as I can determine, is okay. Well, we'll get to that. So I had heard somebody say that the CIA had told Trump that Russia had done actual secret nuclear tests. I don't know if you've heard about that or anything. But that
No.
okay, because I've heard that. So I don't know. So maybe just I'll get your take. What do you think about Trump's post?
Um, I think that Trump doesn't understand. I mean, this isn't me calling him stupid. I don't understand how to repair cars. That doesn't make me stupid. But I don't say that I'm the best mechanic that ever lived and shit talk about it being such a good mechanic. I'm upfront. I'm not very good with cars. I'm not a car guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think Trump knows that much about warfare or weapons. And so he's just like, let's just blow up nukes because that makes us scary and that makes us cool and intimidating. He doesn't really understand any kind of like backswing of like why we don't do that anymore.
Well, what's the point?
And
Like, what do we need to test?
I don't know. Also, when was the last time that America blew up an underground nuke?
I think it was 92. Let me see. I actually have that written down somewhere. I think I do at least. I have it somewhere. Okay.
90. I don't know. Google's AI thing says it was in September 23rd, 1992.
Yeah, that's what I have. Yep, 92.
I mean, do you know if the whole nuclear trigger, the tritium crisis is still going on in America?
I don't know. Sorry, I just wanted to read one more. This is from Valery Gerasimov, Supreme Commander of the Russian Army. The absence of an official explanation from the American side regarding President Trump's statement on resuming nuclear tests offers no assurance that the United States will not soon begin preparing and then conducting nuclear tests. The American side may continue to evade providing official explanations, but this is immaterial. If we do not take appropriate measures now, we will lose the ability to respond in a timely manner. Given that preparing for tests takes a while. So now I don't know. It's just yeah. And Hegseth also said that they're going to start nuclear weapons testing, and J.D. Vance said it, and then Johnson said it. So now and then someone was saying,
I don't know if you want to share it, but Constantine is talking about, I don't know, you're aware of that America launched a Missile Man 3 into the ocean without a nuke in it, right?
Oh, no, I hadn't.
Minuteman 3.
That. Okay.
Okay, I posted a picture of it. So this week, in response to after Trump posted the Truth Social thing, America didn't blow up a nuke, but we launched a Minuteman III into the ocean, like akin to what North Korea does. Um, and so I posted a picture of its launch, which has been going around on the internet in your Argent stream
Yeah,
server.
I'm just trying to.
Yeah,
Sure.
so I just wanted to point that out. The other thing is, going back to the Truth Social post itself, I don't know if it's clear if he understands the difference between missile testing and nuclear testing. And so, if I were to say so, I assume that he's talking about North Korea launching missiles into the Japanese Sea
Uh,
without nukes on them, and Russia's testing of their
it's
new
new
weapons,
delivery systems.
their new delivery. Yeah, I think that he doesn't understand that nuclear testing of a nuclear weapon and testing of delivery system are two separate things. And like I think that that's what happened. And so the
I agree.
testing of new delivery system says, "I'm going to blow up nukes again." And I think that that was his response. And so Russia's really confused that Trump would be such a loudmouth to make such an elementary mistake on an official platform.
Well, it announced like very escalatory rhetoric. So, sorry. So we're jumping around a bit. So what had happened is Russia's been developing basically their like current super weapon or whatever you want to call it. They developed the Argent. They've been developing hypersonic missiles for years. Serp, to my knowledge, I don't think the U.S. has a hypersonic missile, does it?
Um,
Like any hypersonic missile?
this new class, it certainly doesn't.
Um, so stuff like the Argent they don't have. So Russia tested its two new delivery systems. The first one is a nuclear powered cruise missile, which flew for 15 hours before they deactivated it. It covered 14,000 kilometers and could have gone further. So that is one of the new weapons that they have tested. Basically, yeah, cruise missile with unlimited range. They have also tested the Poseidon, which is a nuclear powered torpedo, which is designed, from my understanding, and this sounds like something from Metal Gear Solid. It is a nuclear powered torpedo that has basically unlimited range, that has a huge warhead in it, and it's designed to start tidal waves and destroy coastal cities. Apparently, this
So
is 200 kilometers per hour is what it moves at.
I posted in the chat America's newest developed missile. I don't think it's technically a hypersonic missile because hypersonic is above Mach 5.
Okay.
I think it's below Mach 5.
Is it in service though, or is it being developed?
It recently entered service.
Oh, okay.
There's multiple missiles that are being developed, but this is the only one that's
Okay.
entered service.
Okay, so
The
they do have one.
LRHW. Yeah, but it's not. It's significantly less intimidating and powerful than Russia's and China's equivalents.
Mm-hmm. Um, so Russia. Okay, so sorry, just to we're all over the place. Okay, so I think what happened is Russia tested these. Trump felt like, oh shit, we haven't rolled out anything cool in a while. Somebody told him about this, and he thought that the torpedo was 200 kilometers per hour. Just answering Rooster God's thing, and he didn't. He either didn't understand it or he didn't speak properly. And he decided to just announce that they were going to resume it because Russia was doing it. But Russia and China have not tested nuclear weapons since the 1990s. So, like, if we look at it,
Yeah, Soviet. It was before the collapse of the Soviet Union that Russia had a nuclear test itself.
yeah. So just going back a bit, like to the non-proliferation treaty, the only countries that have not signed it are India, Israel, North Korea, Pakistan, North Korea left. Oh, sorry, no, North Korea and South Sudan. South Sudan for obvious reasons, but as far as I can determine, Russia, China, and everybody else has largely stuck to it. Um, I think something people don't really get is Russia does not want Iran to have nuclear weapons. Like they've been very clear about that.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, nuclear states also they also have an interest in not having other states develop nuclear weapons because it not only makes them more powerful, but the nuclear umbrella makes them more powerful. That Russia wants rather have rather have Iran believe that it will be able to diplomatically prevent a war with the United States or with Israel than have Iran build its own deterrence, right?
yeah. So sorry, just looking at this, the only nuclear tests we have had since 1998 were from North Korea. There have not
Yeah,
been
the
any
last
others.
Chinese
This.
one was 96, last Russian one's 90, last American one's 92.
And the newer ones were Pakistan and India. Now, China is rapidly expanding its arsenal. I think the current estimate is 1,000 by 2030 to 2035 is what I've seen. Part of what I
Hmm.
don't get about this whole thing is like at what how many do you realistically need for a deterrent?
I think that you realistically, for an actual deterrent, you need ICBMs or a capable submarine weapon, um, and a few like 200 or 300 of them. You just need to be able to describe it. You need to be able to survive a decapitation strike and then be able to hit counter value targets. You need to be able to survive a destruction of your military and then have nukes that can blow up cities and kill millions. So I think a few hundred, 200 or so is fine. Even 80 might be fine.
Right. So China's 400 at the moment. They have a nuclear triad. Um, so
Like
yeah,
there's a reason that China, UK, and France stopped under, was it under 300 or under 400?
China
Because all
was,
three
but
of them,
yeah.
because all three of them kind of just stopped under that point because I think independently each of them understood that that was enough for deterrence.
Pakistan and India both stopped at like under 200.
Hmm.
North Korea, I don't. It's hard to tell with North Korea. They only have a couple dozen. Um,
Hmm.
I mean, North Korea
Well,
doesn't really.
I mean, do we know if they only have a couple dozen?
That's what estimates are. Um,
Yeah, because we can't really. I don't think we can infiltrate them with any spies or anything, and they're not on the non-proliferation treaty or in any talks, are they?
no, I don't think so. And then who knows how many Israel has?
Yeah,
The,
same
the, the,
issues.
the claim is 90. So so I think that's what happened. Now, if Trump, my concern now is that Trump is going to go, okay, well, I said we were going to resume nuclear testing, and I have to be the alpha male. I have to be, so I'm going to just restart nuclear testing because if I take it back, that's going to make me look weak. I mean, that's just kind of my concern. Um, I don't know what do you think?
Um, I don't know. He doesn't commit to anything. That's why he's makes himself look weak. I
I
honestly think he just got confused between nuclear testing and nuclear missile testing and then posted it on Truth Social. That's unironically what I think. But
I,
we'll see if they actually they do an underground explosion.
I mean, it's crazy though. Like and there are people I've seen, and I get it, who hate the mainstream media and are like, oh, it's cool that Trump is sticking it to them on Truth Social and that he's not acting like a normal politician. And but like, especially when you get into like I just don't like it when people fuck around with nuclear weapons. Like to me, this is the one thing you should not be posting on Truth Social about, and you shouldn't be making decisions about.
Well, it
The
doesn't really serve any diplomatic purpose. You want, like I said, you want to be clear. You don't want to be verbose and backtrack and look weak. But being a flip flopper, over speaking, over exposing yourself, this is not a very good way to conduct diplomacy.
I mean, it's bad enough in like a domestic, but he will just like go off on Putin and ruin. I don't know. It's once again, it's hard to tell how much of this is him, how much of this is the people that he hired or whatever. But it is. I mean, you can argue that the Russian like so the arguments I've heard is that the Russians have what was it again? Um, I completely lost my train of thought. Nicholas DeBerry says, Argent, how many times has Putin pulled the nuke card now? Like 5 times or something. Yeah, I mean, they have. I'm not going to pretend that they haven't. Like, what you want me to say? I Russia's done that repeatedly throughout the Russo-Ukraine conflict, and I think they've implied that if they lost the war conventionally, they would use nukes, which I think is a bitch move. But that's just me.
Well, I talked about in my video that I think that one of the more likely scenarios for a nuclear war is a conventional war between a nuclear power and a non-nuclear power where they have parity and the nuclear power starts losing. So if if Ukraine attempted to take Crimea, I wouldn't be surprised if Russia started using nukes on the
No, I
battlefield.
would if
Like if
it
it
looked like
truly
they were
was
going to.
reversed.
Yeah, no, I agree. Which I think is a bitch move, but I mean, I think it's. I'm not going to pretend that that's not something that would happen. Um, but the other thing is there is only one arms treaty left, which is New Start. Let me just see where it is. Now, as I've said in the past, I think that the arms control treaties were probably one of the single greatest achievements in all of diplomatic history, and one of the best things that was achieved during the Cold War. Because the total number of nuclear weapons went down immensely, partially as a result of them. Like if you look at the drop off from some of them, it was massive. And the first one was the medium range ballistic missiles. So I hadn't really understood that until recently. I think the issue was the medium range ones had extremely short travel times. So in terms of doing a first strike decapitation that would prevent retaliation, they were the ones that were most likely to be used. My other understanding is because they were expected to be destroyed quick, commanders were on a hair trigger to use them or lose them.
Hmm. They're considered just in general during the late Cold War in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, the most dangerous of all the weapons. Um,
So,
for those reasons you laid out.
so we had the New START treaty, which was with Obama, and I think Medvedev was president at the time, that they signed, which primarily impacted the U.S. because I think the U.S. had more delivery systems at the time. So it was set to expire in 2021, or no, 2020, I think, and then Biden extended it for 5 years. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to remember the timeline. But the current New START is set to expire in 2026. Now, Russia has been trying to get the U.S. to agree to a extension on it for another year at least, so that they can negotiate a follow-up treaty. Trump said it sounded like a good idea, but has not responded beyond that. And they've basically been kind of like it's kind of like at work where somebody's not responding to you, so you keep sending follow-up emails every 3 or 4 days. Hey man, just seeing how it's going. How about that New START treaty? And then getting no response.
Yeah, the issue though is like if this treaty doesn't get signed, will there be any immediate consequences or will anything really change? Because does either the, I mean, over say 5 or 10 years, maybe they're going to build more weapons, but like, does America or Russia individually, do they need to extend their nuclear weapon stockpile more? I see that China is going to do so because they want to have parity with such a um, huge, collection of nuclear weapons to draw upon, so that they don't seem less powerful than Russia and the United States on the world stage. But will it really change anything if this new START falls through? Because I think that the basis of these kind of late Cold War, Gorbachev and Reagan, and eventually Gorbachev and Bush, and then Yeltsin and Clinton, kind of like nuclear weapons reduction treaties. I think a lot of them are not fully understood without the implication that NATO would not move eastward. And so I think the reality, and I'm sorry if I'm playing the fence or both sides in this video, I think that the reality is that understanding these nuclear reduction treaties is kind of like, in regards to only them being about nuclear weapons and not outside influence with the militarization of NATO, the Warsaw Pact, and then just NATO again, is kind of not fully
You
understanding
mean
the context in which they're created.
it's a general commitment to détente or de-escalation?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they're just the tip of the iceberg towards removing Russian and American troops from Europe. And I think when these were initially created in the early 90s and the late 80s, it was under an understanding of America is going to pull back its troops. If we pull back our troops, we'll both cut back on the nuclear weapons. And so I think that this new START is just the last, I don't know, it's like the last lit fire of the drawdown from the Cold War. And that the United States, by putting Poland and Hungary and the Czech Republic and Slovakia and Romania and so on, and eventually the Baltic states and Scandinavia into NATO, I think that though the unspoken agreement or the handshake agreement of that we often talk about with the Ukraine war is a very important preliminary to understanding that war, that's also a preliminary understanding for understanding the context of nuclear arms treaties and the American and Russian destruction of their own nuclear stockpiles, and that by pushing NATO eastwards and deploying keeping this large contingent of American troops in Europe, in Germany, but also smaller contingents even in the Baltic states. That means that these nuclear arms treaties, which I think Russia signed on to them under the understanding it would help alleviate their situation with American and build up and admittance of other states into NATO. Now that that's not on the table anymore, Russia really has no reason to continue with the START treaties either, or the nuclear arms reduction treaties.
The Yeah, I agree. I just lost my train of thought there. Sorry, just with regards to New START, so Russia suspended their participation in it as a result in 2023,
Hmm.
primarily because they claimed that the U.S. was using it as an opportunity to pass intelligence information to Ukraine, of which I think there is a 99% chance that that was happening.
Hmm.
Um, and earlier this year, we had Operation Spider's Web, where the Ukrainians launched a series of attacks on Russian strategic bombers that had been left out in the open as per the conditions of New Start. Because I believe my understanding is Russia suspended participation, but continued to abide by its terms, and so that kind of also killed the idea that we were going to try to continue the whole thing, like to try to go further, and that kind of sunk it. But I do think that is probably part of it. Is now that the U.S. is basically in a war with Russia, the Russians don't want to give the U.S. inspection rights because the U.S. is pretty clearly passing that information to Ukraine for use in special forces attacks.
Yeah, I mean, America already had a history of that with Iraq, um, using the vertifiers to see if Iraq was developing chemical weapons, the way to put spies in the country and infiltrate the Iraqi regime. So, yeah, that's not good.
So, kind of transitioning from that, because it's a good topic. So, one of the main, I think the main reason Iran kicked out the weapon inspectors from the IAEA is they claimed that the weapon inspectors were doxing the nuclear scientists and giving their like names and addresses and stuff to Israel. Um,
Yes, this is what happened in the Iraq. This is what happened in the 90s in the lead up to the Iraq War. That the inspection teams are kind of like this front that Israel could use to assassinate people in Iraq, including the hierarchy of the Ba'athist regime. And so the whole Saddam won't let us look into the palaces thing, which is, it's not Saddam's personal residence. It's actually all the government, the higher level government buildings of the Ba'athist regime. They didn't want them to look in because they knew that Israel would start bugging, the United States and Israel together would start bugging all the leadership, and that Israel, excuse me, and eventually the United States with the war itself would then try to decapitate the leadership of Iraq. And so Iran, sorry, I'm just burping, but Iran would obviously knows that allowing these inspectors, which are going to have Israeli and American spies in them, to intimately know the leadership of Iran and where their living quarters are is a ever-present danger. And then it leads to this double-edged sword if you do that, because then the United States and Israel use it as a casus belli, as we have seen now with the 12-day war.
well, even before that, though, the Mossad regularly does state terrorist attacks where they'll assassinate nuclear scientists or blow stuff up or things like that. I think it's pretty clear. I think there's like an over 90% chance that they're passing information to uh, Israel, like the where they're living, where the facilities are, the defenses on that kind of thing. And I think it's sad because they corrupted the process. The biggest kind of restriction on Iran actually developing nuclear weapons has been shut down uh, because of their behavior. So you had said in your video, and I think I agree with you, that the biggest single threat for nuclear weapons is not Pakistan or North Korea, it's Israel.
Yes, because Israel with nuclear weapons is the real nation that's turned into this international pariah, this international bully that attacks its neighbors and expects no retaliation, and it's just completely out of control as like this rogue state, which is it attacked the UAE. It killed the own peacekeepers that are sending independently to try and end the conflict in the UAE. Right? Was it no? It was it Bahrain or was it the UAE? No, it was
Qatar.
Qatar.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was, I think, literally like less than 100 kilometers from the biggest U.S. base in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Didn't
Um,
the United States also condemn that in the United Nations?
I think they did. I think they did vote to condemn it. Trump actually got angry about that. But it's like, so I think in terms of okay, so firstly, if you look at, let's just take a step back. If you look at the rhetoric that comes out of not even Netanyahu, but the people in his coalition, people like Ben Gavir with the Jewish Power Party, and like Smotrich with whatever his is, they will just talk openly about wanting to kill the Palestinians. They'll be like, we need to starve them to death. Ben Gavir had the Israeli secret police or whatever live stream Palestinians being tortured to his office so he could watch it. Like they the
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
oh no, I can bring that up. But like remember the riot they had because they were trying to arrest the soldiers who were raping Palestinian prisoners.
Yeah.
So then the ultranationalists were trying to prevent them from getting arrested. I've heard stories about like just IDF serial killers going out and just shooting people. But my point is, those are the people who are in power. People who unironically view non-Israelis or non-Jews, and they will say this as not being human. Um, and I think it's Smulrich said something like, "It would be moral to kill every single Palestinian." Um,
Well, in Israeli law, doesn't Palestine no longer exist as an entity? Isn't the West Bank, according to Israeli law, part of Israel now?
I think so. It might have been. It's very confusing because
Isn't it
Israel does.
under occupation by I'm the Department of Interior? Like, isn't the Jewish power guy in control of Palestine or the West Bank proper?
I think so. Israel does it in ironically a very Jewish way, wherein they will use like weasel words, or they'll say like part of Israel but not annexed, or like I don't know. They just I've tried to look it up. It's very confusing how it actually works. But for all intents and purposes, yes, the West Bank is an annexed part of Israel. It's
It's like
just
Bantustan.
it's a Bantu state. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Um, yeah, it's a Bantustan. But I mean, as I did a video about this a couple weeks back, where I went through all of the campaigns Israel's done in the post Hamas attack. I mean, they've attacked Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, Qatar. I think there might Yemen. There's been a whole bunch of just conflicts they've started, and some of them, like I don't think, if I recall, Iran and them weren't even in a hot war when they just decided to start attacking Iran.
Well, how many times did they attack? Was it twice
Yeah, it
before
was
the
twice.
12-Day War happened?
I think it was once before the 12-Day War happened, and they had a bit of a shooting. They invaded Lebanon. They invaded an occupied part of Syria. They're
Okay, I
just
mean, you know what you should do now?
what?
You should list the amount of countries that Germany violated the neutrality of in World War II, and see if Israel violated the neutrality of more countries or Germany did.
Well, keep in mind, Israel obviously is also violating the, like we don't even talk about this anymore, but Israel has to violate the airspace of multiple countries to even make it to Iran.
Hmm.
I think Turkey allows them because the Turks are backstabbing cocksuckers, but
No, I don't think Turkey allows them anymore. Didn't Erdogan say that Netanyahu is an international criminal, and that if he ever steps foot in Turkey, he'll be taken to the
well,
Hague?
sorry, Erdogan says a lot of things and then does a lot of things with Israel. Erdogan is probably the single biggest snake in the world, and to his credit, he's at least good at being a snake.
Well,
Um,
that's the other thing about Trump. Trump is trying to he flip flops, but he can't be as good at it as Erdogan can.
like Erdogan is, I gotta give him credit. He is somehow able to just balance everybody against everybody, and continually backstab and double cross everybody, but get away with it. I think for him, he's kind of like Bismarck in that when he dies or leaves, Turkey is going to be fucked because I don't think anyone is going to have the like skill to keep all of these shell games going.
I don't know. Do you know what's going on with Cyprus?
Has something recently happened there?
I don't know. People have said that it's gonna unify, so I don't know
Okay,
what's
I
going on
haven't
there. I was
heard.
just asking.
I,
Sorry if that's kind of a non
no,
sequitur.
I haven't heard about that. But yeah, like they have to pass over Jordan or Saudi Arabia or Iraq or whoever to get to Iran.
Israel just violates Jordan's airspace like every day. That's just reality. Like they believe that Jordan's airspace is their airspace.
Well, and the thing that I said that this is like a bitch made aspect about Israel. I feel like Iran and Syria and a lot of other countries are reluctant to even shoot at Israel planes when they're bombing them because if they shoot down an Israeli plane, that'll be seen as an act of aggression.
Hmm.
Like as the Israeli planes are bombing them, the IDF will cry out in pain as they airstrike you.
Hmm.
But like to me, the big thing that I thought was kind of surprising was how bad they did after in the last couple of years. Like they haven't achieved their goals in Gaza, have they?
All that they do is just kill civilians. They don't ever defeat Hamas. Hamas is like they just have these little excursions to fight Hamas and then lose a few dozen soldiers and then don't attack them for like months.
Like Tucker did an interview with like a guy who was working with the
They
AIDS.
just hold Gaza's citizens. They just hold them as a hostage and just let them starve to death or die slowly.
I think they're keeping them on the verge. Like at any point in time, they can just mass kill them off through starvation. I think the idea is to make it so depressing that someone will cave and take them in. I think is what the plan is. Either Egypt or a Western country or something will just give up and take them in. But like the stuff I've heard, and I had to look this up because this sounded cartoonishly evil, is that there's only I think 4 or 5 aid stations left in Israel, and the IDF will just shoot the people who are coming to get the food. Uh,
Then they shoot over their heads to intimidate them, but not
they
shoot them.
claim that well that's the cope. They will also shoot over their heads with artillery and tank rounds,
Yeah.
but they aim a bit low for shooting over their heads. You know that scene in South Park where he yells "I feel threatened" and then shoots the bear.
Hmm.
Basically, they do that. But okay, so Israel didn't do that. I maintain that they lost against Hezbollah. I don't know how you feel about that.
Well, okay, so like with both Hezbollah and Iran, they both attack them. They both, well, I'm going ADD-ish, but like they both attacked them and then withdrew within days or however. How long was the whole incursion into Lebanon?
It didn't go on for
Because
I think a
obviously it's
couple
a
weeks.
12-day war.
No, that
I
was a
think their
separate. No,
incursion into Lebanon. No, I mean because we have the term 12-day war because
that
how
was
short it
versus
was, but
Iran. Lebanon was at a different time.
yeah, but no, but what I'm saying is that it how short that war against Iran is literally called a number of days war because
Hmm.
it was short. So the incursion against Lebanon was short, but it didn't end up. I don't think it has any real title other than like spill over into Lebanon during the Gaza war, does it?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a lot of damage to Hezbollah. Ironically, that the way they part of the way that they did that was they offered Hezbollah a truce, then waited until the leadership was meeting to discuss the truce, and then systematically wiped them out when they were.
Yeah, this is why this is what I'm talking about when they act like as a nuclear madman, is that they break timeless like pre-written language, like pre-agricultural agreements of how you conduct war, that you don't shoot the messenger, and they just routinely do it now. They just violate it.
So I think Hezbollah took damage, but at the end of the day, Israel was unable to destroy Hezbollah. They were unable to set up a buffer zone. They really didn't, I think, to my understanding, achieve anything. Like it didn't. It was like a strategic failure, even if they disproportionately killed their enemies. Like I think the expectation was that the IDF was just this supreme thing, and it was just going to roll into Lebanon and just destroy Hezbollah. I think that was also the expectation with Gaza. You also had the Houthis, and the U.S. lost to the Houthis, which was pretty sad. I remember Biden going. Sorry, go on.
I don't. The other thing is where you have like Lebanon, or not Lebanon, you have Libya and you have Yemen and stuff, and you have like these civil war, and now maybe this will happen in Sudan. Like they're not splitting the country up, but like de facto they're split, but not internationally. And so like the Houthis just kind of exist, and they're never going to be defeated by the central like Yemeni government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a clusterfuck. But like the thing you have to understand with Israel is that they don't. So it's all like this event. The Gaza war is like an adventure. It's not like the 6 Day War. It's not like Yom Kippur. I don't even know if it's like is it the 82 invasion of Lebanon?
Yeah.
They're not putting their back into it, and they're terrified of any kind of casualties. Like they lose a dozen soldiers, and then they're like, we're done. And that they're like, the way that it's being conducted in Gaza is just genocidal, because the intention isn't to destroy, like, defeat Hamas or defeat Hezbollah. It's just to fucking kill as many civilian Palestinians as they can for like evil, like genocidal reasoning.
But not go full genocide to maintain implausible.
They're mowing the lawn, is the term is. They're mowing the lawn. They're killing a part, but not a whole.
Just to keep, once again, Israel has killed, I think it might be an order of magnitude, more civilians than Russia has.
Well, isn't the official count somewhere in the 70,000s?
Yeah, I think it's higher than that. I don't know if how much, because I feel like most of the casualties are probably from like food, from starvation and dysentery and dehydration.
There's that, but there's also just like missing people because all the buildings have been destroyed. So we don't know the total amount. It's supposed to be like, Wikipedia has it at something like 69,000 officially like bodies found, and like 78 odd thousand officially assumed to be dead because missing bodies buried under rubble.
Like I would not be surprised if it was significantly higher than that.
Then you have like people that need people that have starved to death, people that died of dysentery. We don't know how many people that have died of, I mean, probably like women that died in childbirth and stuff, that if you had baseline third world medical attention, that like tens of thousands of people would have lived stuff. Like probably like really high infant mortality, right? People from like type 2 diabetes dying, stuff like that.
I don't know if like it's even past, maybe it's past 15,000 civilians deaths in Ukraine since 2014, but it's very, very low. So that stuff happened. Now, Hezbollah and Hamas are not an existential threat to Israel. But Iran, I think, is. So we had the 12-day war, which people say was a draw. I think Israel got completely blown out in it. I don't know. What's your opinion?
So I think that the war resulted in I think that strategically Iran won. Tactically, it's indecisive, right?
Inconclusive. Yep.
But yeah, inconclusive. Like the leadership of Iran clearly was vindicated by the war. Any kind of waning support for the Ayatollah, and the military, kind of like, you have this rally around the flag effect. You have this realization that Iran has the power, even without nuclear weapons, to stand up to Israel as like an equal, which I think legitimizes the government a lot. But you also have Iraq as just like, fuck Iran. So Iraq has fallen out. So like Iran lost Syria and now it's lost Iraq because Iraq has like decided to become America's ally again
Hmm.
instead of Iran's ally. Um, but Israel, like, they wasted all these Patriot missiles on this indecisive war that didn't accomplish anything. So like Israel lost billions and billions of dollars and it can't attack Iran anymore because all its Patriot missile stockpile is just gone.
Like I don't have the math in front of me, but they burned through like years worth of production. I think it was like 4 or 5 years worth of production of interceptor missiles in the 12-day war.
Hmm.
And Iran was like nowhere near running out of missiles, and the Israeli Air Force was basically exhausted and their planes were down for maintenance. And like when America came in, it had more or less reached the point where Iran was just going to start to be able to fire missiles at Israel with impunity and just kind of indefinitely keep hitting them. And that's why I think it came in. Constantine says it was about 3 to 7 years of interceptor missiles. Um, so I think that's why the U.S. came in, because like Israel had to bat phone the U.S. because they like, if things had gone on, the Iranians would have just kept firing missiles and drones at them, and there wouldn't have really been that much they could do to respond. And to me though, that actually, when we reached that point, I started to get scared, and I criticized Trump at the time, but maybe in a sense it was a good thing
I
because
think that Trump kind of forced. Go ahead.
no, I'm just going to say because I was worried when they ran out of interceptor missiles, they were going to start bringing out the nukes.
Hmm.
I don't know what you
I
think.
think that Trump forced the war to end. I think that there was very back-channely communication of what happened, I think,
Hmm.
because you have this kind of sense that, right, that like the initial thing is like, oh no, Trump is a complete, uh, Israel lobby APAC shill. He's gone all the way to engage in Israel's war. But like, what seems to have happened is it was like this back channel communication, again, like the Syrian intervention when they bombed the air base that was abandoned, that it was like this diplomatic posturing where America attacked a abandoned, like, both sides knew behind, because of back channel communication, that Iran had abandoned the space. America does this attack that does superficial damage, and then America used this to force Israel to end the war. And so, in a sense, like, at the time, it obviously seemed like, oh no, America, like Trump is a complete Zionist shill or whatever. But like in retrospect, it seems that America actually strong armed Israel into ending the war through the intervention itself.
Yeah, would you agree though? Like I was worried that Israel was going to start
Yeah, because
using nukes because they had
they're
nothing
cornered,
else.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, if the war went on indefinitely, like, because Iran actually had all these, they were able to just get through Israeli defenses in the last like day or so, and they were attacking Israel in broad daylight, and just they were starting to attack, um, like they're starting to just attack their military bases and air bases outright. Like it wasn't just like debris falling out, or like they send a million different targets and then one of them gets through. It was like they're sending much less missiles because it was guaranteed they're get through. And Israel and Iran was just going to start attacking their military bases systematically as it went on.
I just like. At that point, I don't really think Israel. Well, Israel would either have to back down, which it would never do, or use nuclear weapons. And I don't know. Like, I'm not convinced that they will, but I think if anyone is going to just chimp out and start using them, it's Israel.
Hmm.
Like, so to me, that I think was a. I think also I don't know how I don't haven't read that much about it, but I would not be surprised if that was shocking to the leadership in Israel, and that hasn't made them change their doctrine on nuclear weapon use in the future. Because basically, like the IDF is just not like they've killed a lot of people, but the only real territorial gains they got is like the little bit the other half of the Golan or the other part of the Golan Heights and temporarily occupying parts of Gaza. But have they decisive? I guess the only enemy they've decisively defeated is Syria.
Yeah, I think that, like I said before, Iran or Israel was in the situation of a nuclear power losing a conventional war, which I think is the most dangerous, um, the most likely to where you'd see nukes used.
Especially when it's
But
Israel.
yes, and I think that Israel is just kind of Israel has no way forward out of the Gaza war, and the only reasoning at this point is that it's just turning into a genocide, just to kill as many Palestinian citizens as you can indefinitely.
But not
As any,
actually go in and formally remove the like actually
yeah, they're
try to
not going to
exterminate
build
them.
concentration camps.
My understanding is in Israel they do call it the Palestinian question.
Hmm.
Like they do use that term, and they do say the final resolution to the Palestinian question,
Hmm.
which I find is funny. The thing is though, like Netanyahu probably will win the next Israeli election. Like Netanyahu is a moderate in terms of the right in Israel. Um, like Likud is only going to decline over time relative to the like the far right religious parties, um, who are going to continue to gain like strength. So it's quite possible that despite the clusterfuck that's been the last year or two, it's you're going to get a new mandate with like Ben Gavir and the like in a stronger position than they were beforehand.
Yeah, the internal dynamics of, well, I don't know how to caveat this. Like, people have gotten annoyed by me saying this. Um, I don't have an explicit racial hatred. Um, I want the Jews to be converted as a people to the true religion. I want them to live prosperously. Um, I'm not a Zionist, but I think that Israel exists as it is, and that the destruction of Israel would be catastrophic and a very negative thing, um, for the people that live there who are people, as the destruction of Palestine is a very terrible thing that has been ongoing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Israel's situation in the long term is looking more and more precarious because the internal demographics of Israel are forcing it into, a more and more aggressive state, which seeks to eliminate the Palestinians, and that it's going to become increasingly alienated from the West, and it's going to lead to popular anti-Semitism re-arising in the West, and that there's no brakes on this train. There's no brakes on this car. There's no brakes on this train. It's just going to get worse and worse. I don't see any way for Israel to moderate its opinion towards the Palestinian question, and thus I don't see Israel in being able to create any kind of, popular reemerge any kind of popularity within within Europe itself or the United States. And obviously it's lost the third world. Like they just hate Israel at this point. I mean, I saw something recently that Israel is kind of taking this pariah thing in the third world and trying to like recognize Somaliland to try and create
What?
outsider allies. Yes, it's really bizarre.
That sounds like that is a very Israeli sounding thing to do.
Yes, they're trying to like recognize because they're trying to create outsider allies because they're so isolated.
I mean, that's the
So
irony of this whole thing is like they keep talking about how Russia has been isolated as a result of the Russo-Ukraine war. I know this is slightly off topic. The clusterfuck that is America's relationship with India is baffling to me.
yeah, I don't know what to say about that one.
Because weren't Modi and Trump like BFFs? Like,
Yeah, I don't know that much about American Indian
oh, okay, because
relations
they
actually.
were really good terms, and then Trump basically gave Modi an ultimatum that unless he stopped buying Russia oil, they were going to economically devastate India. And then Trump did a press statement saying that he had talked to Modi and Modi had agreed to stop buying Russian oil. And then it turned out that the call never actually happened and he just made the whole
Oh, I
thing up.
forgot about that.
He just made the
I mean,
call.
I don't see any reason why. Okay, so like it's bad strategic thinking to make China and Russia allies.
Mhm.
Like it's bad diplomatic posturing, bad strategic thinking. But to make India allies with China and Russia is like the most idiotic thinking I can imagine.
Well, I think India was happy to be neutral.
Yes.
Like I think
Well,
India was happy to just do
India
business.
India and China have their dispute over territory. So, and China's kind of building a ring around India. India should be our ally against Chinese expansion. But the tariff sanction idiocy.
Liberation Day.
Well, okay, so like Mersheimer's been talking, like Mersheimer's complete frustration with the situation. I've been a champion of protectionism. His interpretation of tariffs is the most frustrating. Like protectionism is like I don't even know. Like tariffs just he's not a protectionist. He has like these bizarre beliefs with tariffs that only he holds to.
Okay, if I can go into technocratic autism for a second. So I had tried to come up with my own, like how I would have done tariffs. So my thinking was there would be three categories: exempt, normal, and strategic. So I was thinking like energy and medication would be exempt. The standard tariff rate would be 10% on everything. And for strategic goods like steel and aluminum, it would be like 30%. Was like the
Hmm.
thought. That was the tariff thought plan that I had come up with. And then any revenue raised would be used to cut corporate and business taxes in the United States. Was was what I had thought. Um, I don't know if that's closer to like what your understanding would be of a logical tariff thing, because I don't really get like what Trump's thing even was.
I think that what Trump is trying to do, what it seems, is that he has this belief that trade imbalances are bad in and of themselves. And so he's trying to impose tariffs
They had a trade surplus with
on,
India, though.
yeah, but he has this like belief that he needs to impose tariffs because that they'll increase America's trade with other nations rather than some kind of protectionism to entice other companies to build their plants in the United States and to have because there's two routes of protectionism, right? Modern protectionism. Because I guess post-industrial protectionism, you could say, or modern post-industrial protectionism. There's two routes you could take it. One is kind of like a weaker protectionism, which is like military protectionism. That the military, like a security-based protectionism, that all the components of your military should be built internally to promote sovereignty for your nation.
Hmm.
And so that having China build any components that go into the American military is very bad to do. Like I'm talking about, like, say, airplanes, or um, Taiwan developing all of our microchips, because
Hmm.
America becomes less sovereign, or we have to protect Taiwan because we need their microchips and we can't develop them ourselves. So it puts us more towards having to fight a war. Our interest puts us more internationally aggressive. So you have this weaker protectionism, which is kind of like a national security protectionism, and then you have this, which it's bizarre to me that people don't even believe in that, but we live in a bizarre world. Anyway, then you have a stronger protectionism, which is just a more kind of like, it's better in the long run to have industry internally in your country, both for political reasons, but you don't want to have some kind of deindustrialized state. You don't want to be modern Germany, where it's deindustrialized, it's lost all its like capacity, and now it's losing its capacity to even generate
A lot of it
energy.
is moving to the U.S. Ironically enough.
Yes. So you have like a weaker and a stronger protectionism, but Trump doesn't seem to believe in either a weaker protectionism, which Republicans usually give lip service to, and even Democrats will give lip service to. Um, and he doesn't believe in a strong protectionism. He doesn't really believe in protectionism. He seems to think that tariffs are
A
some kind of
weapon?
way, like, either, well, he got confused and turned them into like this weird sanction thing, but he seems to think that trade imbalances are bad in themselves, and that you need to use tariffs so that America can impose trade, like, can have a other countries will take in more American goods than we take in their goods through tariffs, like kind of like as a bully.
Uh huh. Well, he's used it to like force countries to agree to give America money, basically.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, he's like, I don't know, because he's like extracting it, because it's not a nationalistic thing. Sometimes it turns like into like this imperial, like, tribute system that he's trying
like
to
I think he
do
forced
with
South
Europe.
Korea to buy a bunch of American oil, that
Yes,
doesn't exist. That's another
yes,
bizarre one. Like Europe agreed to buy all this oil that doesn't exist. Um,
yes. Because he's trying to like, he's trying to create these like treaties using, he's trying to turn them into like this tribute system on America's clients, to where he's going to prop up America's like fracking industry. And it's just like, okay,
is there
guys.
even? But my understanding is there's not enough to actually sell the required amounts to any of these people.
Well, so like Saudi Arabia is like is glutting the oil market independently of the United States against American wishes.
Uh huh.
And so that's causing yeah, there's outside stuff. I could share stuff about it. So Saudi Arabia is trying to glut the market again
Hmm.
with oil. And so they're lowering the oil, like, in a backwards, if you could explain it, it's very Rule Goldberg machine, but in a sense, this is kind of an America First policy, actually. But so, like, Saudi Arabia is glutting the market, and before, Saudi Arabia glutted the market during the Cold War and lowered, because Saudi Arabia has unilateral power to lower the cost of oil globally because of how large its supply is and how easy it is for it to access it. So Saudi Arabia is increasing production, which is lowering the global oil rate, or lowering the global oil costs. And the United States' oil industry is very fickle because it's not a conventional, outside of Alaska for the most part, it's not a conventional oil industry. It's a fracking industry. And so it's all these startups which already are under harassment from states and the central government's environmental laws. So it's already seen as a
Isn't
poor
it
investment because it's unpopular.
You would know because of where you is it. I've heard it's very environmentally destructive, fracking.
Yes, there's this belief that fracking will destroy the water table.
I've
In the
also
United
heard it
I
causes
don't.
earthquakes or something. I don't even know if that's true.
Yeah,
But
well, it will. I don't know if it doesn't cause like it causes small earthquakes,
okay,
but because they're drilling sideways, that you'll have natural gas and oil infiltrate the water table, and there's this belief it, I don't know if we fully know that much about it, but so fracking is being harassed in the United States because of its um
potentially
it's because of
catastrophic
because of
consequences.
because of the potential catastrophic consequences environmentally. And so it's already seen as a poor investment internally. But the other thing is it can't compete on the level of conventional oil. Conventional oil is just better. It is environmentally better, right? And so there has to be a certain threshold of the cost of oil globally for fracking to be a business venture that's worth doing.
Hmm.
And so what the United States is doing is they're trying to create this artificial drive on the part of its I'll just say client nations or its nuclear
Hmm.
umbrella or its sphere of influence to create this artificial need for its oil and natural gas industry to prop them up as Saudi Arabia is glutting out the market. And if the because because of how fickle America's fracking industry is, they're all startups and they could all go out of business and the entire oil industry in America could like go the way of the dodo in a few years because it's hand to mouth. It's not long-term
Do we
investments
even know
because of
how
the
much there
environmental stuff.
is? Like, I've
There's a lot of unconventional oil out there, but again, you run into the issue that it has to be a certain threshold to be oil has to be cheap enough in order to do it
you mean
because doing the
expensive
tar
enough?
sands and fracking, yeah, oil has to be a certain price of per barrel in order to be for it to be viable. And so if it gets below that price, they can't take that for more than like 5 years or so, and all these startups will collapse because it's not a giant industry and it can't take it on the chin for a while
Uh,
because it's so costly, so intensive, and it's so environmentally um, precarious and popularly precarious. And so Trump is trying to create this artificial demand for American oil to prop up the American oil industry. And what it's doing by doing that is he's trying to make South Korea and Europe into these tributary
to
nations
buy
through
non-existent
these
oil.
trade deals. Yeah, to buy non-existent oil to generate artificial demand for it.
So, on that subject, because I had not heard about this until a couple years back. So, the U.S. thought it was a good idea to export all of its rare earth mineral production to China.
Yes.
They thought it's baffling to me.
Yes, because this is like America's not pursuing like weak, lesser protectionism, right? We're not trying to make internal rare minerals and develop our rare earth mineral. What's the
Rare
technical
earth
term?
metals, sorry, rare earth metals.
Rare earth metals, and we're not trying to build our own microchip industry because of environmental concerns, right? And so the policy is that because of the environmental policies of the United States, is that they'll be manufactured in another country, and China will do that. But then you have extremely stupid strategic logic, as China is a near peer
So,
independent
so,
country which is hostile to
so
us.
the genius plan is to give the ability to shut down the U.S. economy to a country that they're actively seeking a conflict with.
Yes.
I'm not even sorry if that sounded sarcastic. I wasn't even being sarcastic with that. I mean, I think in a lot of cases it's not possible or desirable to be 100% self-sufficient. but there's a difference between being like let's take food. There's a difference between producing 40% of the food you need and 0% of the food that you need. At least in one case, you can buffer like if someone withholds it, if there's a market problem or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe if the U.S. produced even like 40% of its rare earth metals, it would not be so beholden. I think doesn't it get like 90% of them from China or some absurd um
I don't know. I don't have the data in front of me, but like if you wanted to have a true America first policy, you would have to extract your own rare earth metals and then develop microchips in the United States instead of Taiwan. You want to have both the crude resource extracted here, developed here, and then manufactured here. And you wouldn't want to be dependent upon this country, which China claims, and which the United States can, at this point, doesn't seem we can win a naval war against, right? And even if we could win a naval war against, you don't want to be in the hole to this other country that has nukes, right? This is worse than the Cold War.
like it's
Because
just
the United, like the part, like to, I guess, circle back to our topic, that we're in a much more dangerous situation than the Cold War itself. Because like while the Soviet Union did take wheat from the West or from the international market, the United States is much more economically dependent upon China than the Soviet Union was ever on the West. And the Soviet Union's trade bloc and the Western trade bloc were largely autonomous. So it was a escalation of military brinksmanship without the concomitant reliance on weakness or reliance of one side on the other. While the current buildup between China and the United States is much worse because the United States is economically reliant upon China's manufacturing center,
so was
which
the
makes it much more likely for a war to happen.
so was the assumption just that America was so militarily supreme that China and co would just accept the arrangement of basically being resource colonies indefinitely? Like was
Yes,
that the calculation?
I think so. I think that there's this idea that like this is the whole part of like the American century and the end of history stuff, right? That
Yeah.
it's globalism, and so globalism is breaking down. China and other countries and Russia are not. They don't want to be resource monkeys to prop up Western living standards. China
It's
wants to
yeah.
be a sovereign state that raises its own living standards.
Yeah, it's kind of funny actually because I don't know if you've seen this. Just maybe to kind of close it out. So, do you think the U.S. is going to invade Venezuela?
Um, I hope not. I don't think so though. Because like, okay, to circle back in like defense of Trump, and I wanted to circle back to nuclear
Sure.
proliferation too after this.
Hmm.
To circle back into the defense of Trump, Trump's day-to-day conduct is very Days of Our Lives, very soap opera-ish, very embarrassing. But the reality is that when it comes to immigration, we don't have the Raise Act, but the United States is dramatic. Like the United States dramatically reduced the refugee resettlement program, which in effect is targeted immigration to prosperous areas, targeted immigration of like Somalis to Minnesota, basically, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that is off the table. We're cracking down and actually enforcing laws regarding illegal immigration. And on top of it, they're just not awarding as many green cards, letting green cards go not being renewed. And so the people end up, if they stay here, they become illegal immigrants and are subject to being deported.
Right.
So the United States, and I know it could be a lot better, but the Trump administration is really pursuing an actual, not just anti-illegal immigration policy. With the charges added to the H-1B program, they're making it a better system and a more general, more restrictive immigration policy in effect, and with the exception of now Boers being the primary refugees, strategic, which is a very strategic thing, even if it can't be defended in like liberal, what do you call it, the
It's
realm of
it's
discussion.
based like it's just
It's
yeah.
based, right? It's really hard to defend it to a normie in the current what you're allowed to say out loud, but this is very good that that's happening.
Hmm.
That refugees are off the table. We're actually cracking down on illegal immigration, and it's becoming, in effect, harder to legally immigrate to the United States. So, like Trump, on that regard, the Trump administration is winning its promises, and for that reason, I can't do anything but wholeheartedly support it and bite my tongue with the stupid stuff regarding Ukraine and regarding other stupid international stuff that he does, or the soap opera-ish stuff, or the just the dumb stuff on Troop Social, because he's bringing home the bacon when it comes to my most important uh, issue for me. He's really bringing it home. The most that he can, that's capable of doing. I don't think that any kind of Raise Act or any kind of more restrictive act of immigration is down the plank in the future. But at least still, whenever there's a Republican presidency, Trump and hopefully likely successors after him are going to have much more restrictive and common sense immigration policies. And as the birth rate continues down to head down, and Latin American birth rates are below ours, that immigration will be less and less of a threat, and internal non-Hispanic white demographics are going to be the highest birth rate of any group. So it doesn't seem that as bad as it seemed in 2014 in the United States for its demographic future. There's
Yeah, no, I
We're
I
kind of
agree.
getting a good, like it's starting, things are actually starting to look up. And then the other thing about that is the United States has withheld. If you do look at it, we are not giving Ukraine hand over fist money. It's mostly Europe that's doing it. And so the reality on the ground is, despite all this flip flopping back and forth with Putin and the stupid meetings and the not showing up to the meeting with Orban and everything, the reality is we are pulling the funding back from Ukraine.
Hmm.
And so, in effect, even if like what Trump's comes out of Trump's lips or what comes out of Rubio's lips, the United States Congress under Republican control is just not giving Ukraine hand over fist money anymore, which is going to result in a more realist policy. Because, like, so that's good. I just wanted to circle back and say
No,
that. But when it comes
I
to
agree.
Venezuela, yeah, when it comes to Venezuela, we have to remember during the first administration and now the second administration, we had the 12-day war, we had the killing of Soleimani, but Trump did not, and we had the bombing of the Syrian airfield, the Kabuki theater of that. But Trump didn't do the 2003 invasion of Iraq on Iran. That
Hmm.
has not happened. That's not manifested. Um, if Trump were to invade Venezuela, right, he has to go through the entire. Uh, he has to get the troops to do it from Congress, and so he's saber rattling against Venezuela in the same way he's saber rattled against Iran, but he's not putting forward. He's not doing the political work to actually invade Venezuela, which is good. The problem is that you can't focus on, with the Trump administration in both terms, you can't focus on the day-to-day soap opera of the news cycle. You have to focus on the long term. So I am, and maybe I'll eat my words because I didn't think Russia would invade Ukraine, but I don't think that there's going to be a regime change with American troops on the ground in Venezuela.
Okay, I just wish that he had accepted Maduro's. Are you familiar with the offer Maduro made?
Yeah, I watched your video on it, and it's stupid that he didn't
Because wouldn't that
try.
have been like the biggest W? Like, yeah, I'm just gonna say I 100% understand where you're coming from, and I agree with you. And I don't think I have ever said that I regret Trump being elected and that things would have been better if he hadn't have been elected. I don't think I've ever just said I outright hate Trump. It's just very frustrating. I think is more than anything else. Like with
Hmm.
Biden, Biden was just out to lunch, and I had zero expectations. I was expecting a bit more, but I mean, we'll see. It's only been a year. Vance said something a little while back or a couple days ago, that I think is very positive. He said we have to start focusing on domestic policy and stop
Hmm.
all this other stuff. Because I do think that they have had some successes there. It's just that there's a bit of a ADHD where they kind of just keep jumping back and forth and following the bouncing ball and stuff like that. Or I think they
I
just
just think he's obsessed with getting the Nobel
yep.
Peace Prize.
No, I just I think a lot of the stuff I think is the law and order stuff is good. The immigration stuff is good. Um, a lot of the general discourse. Uh, I feel do you feel like a lot of the trans stuff has basically failed in the U.S.? Sorry if that's kind of a
Um.
uh,
Oh well,
non
we'll
sequitur.
see. There are opinion polls that see that support for transsexuality is going down. The more trans people there are and people are familiar with it, right? The most racist areas of the United States are the ones with the most less supportive of civil rights law and affirmative action is the South because they have the most black people. So the more and more trans people you have and people that are experienced with interacting with them, the worse and worse transsexuality's approval actually becomes. That you had this blow up from the media of approval for transsexuality, and now it's deflating. Now, if it's over, I don't know because
No,
you
I
have
don't
to
think it's
remember
over.
with
I
the
think it's taken I think it's been set
it's
back
moving in
more
a
than
positive direction.
I came up with this term, transsexualism in one country, um, for it getting pushed back or delayed everywhere other than Canada. Um, so they're going to try
Oh,
to
is
build.
Canada getting more and more
It's the
aggressive?
most. From my understanding of Western countries, it's the most just aggressively pro-trans. So I'm calling it trans in one country. Um,
Isn't isn't the British healthcare system and the British government say that you can't change your sex now
I think so. I think the
under the
feminists
Labour
won there.
government? Yeah.
I think the feminists won there, so that's why I mean that the trans revolution has been defeated everywhere else. So we're gonna have transsexualism in one country until we can we can export it to the rest of the collective West.
I don't
Um,
know. I mean, I don't know. It seems like it's a lot less apparent, and I mean, that's hopeful as a man that has a daughter,
mhm.
but we'll see in 10 years or so because you have to remember with there was this during the sexual revolution acceptance for gays spiked, and then there was this pushback against gays, and
Hasn't it
then
been going down lately?
it's been going well. June was a lot less there was a lot less stuff in this June
No, no.
than
I
other
mean, I
months.
think polls isn't support for gay marriage going back down to about 50%. I saw something like that
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that these things go back and forth, so I want to be cautiously
No, I
optimistic
just
about
keep
it.
in mind I live in Canada, so any movement in the other direction is baffling to me. Um,
Um yeah, so there's a difference between transsexuality and homosexuality.
yeah.
That's very apparent here. And so you can be somebody can be gay and you can interact with somebody at work who's gay and just be like, well, they're gay. When it comes to transsexuality, you have to say the pronoun.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more ride or die. because
Uh-huh.
you can be neutral publicly on being gay and privately be against being gay. It's
Uh-huh.
very easy to do that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to being trans, you have to, there's either opposition or support. There's no neutrality on transsexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And so the whole thing of like centrist gay people being or pro-gay, anti-trans, like this isn't actually that much of a cope or like Republicans are the there's some truth to it. It's not the whole Republicans or Democrats from 10 years ago on that issue because you can't be publicly new. You have to say the pronouns.
Also just it's so inherently disgusting once you start to get into like the surgeries and stuff like that. I just feel like it's hard to sell to most of the public, even like the centrist or moderately liberal public, that it's a good idea for your kid to get their dick chopped off when they're like 14. I just don't think that
Yeah,
that's easy to sell.
so I actually learned recently that disrupting endocrines during disrupting hormones through either hormone blockers or the opposite sex's hormones
Hmm.
causes permanent brain damage and lowers IQ.
No shit. So,
Yeah.
so you're
Like that
saying,
you're during puberty, your brain is supposed to grow with natural hormones taking a part of it, and withholding or even changing those hormones will cause you to lose a substantial amount of your will be measured by losing substantial intelligence and result in permanent brain lifelong brain damage.
so you're saying that injecting kids with massive amounts of synthetic hormones and chemicals while they're actively growing has negative consequences?
Yes.
That's, I don't know, dude. That seems kind of crazy to me.
Yep.
Anyways, did you have anything else you wanted to
I
add?
wanted to circle back to proliferation
Okay,
and
sure.
non-proliferation.
Okay, sure.
So the thing with these treaties, with the START treaties and the various missile proliferation treaties, they're originally created at the end of the Cold War, at least the middle of the Cold War, and that they're targeted towards the United States and Soviet Union, then Russia, right, and
Hmm.
reducing their large stockpiles.
Yep.
Um, so, like I said before, the People's Republic of China and France and Britain and India and every other country is kept like reaches like a few hundred, which they deem to be enough to suffice for deterrence, and they don't build large stockpiles.
Hmm.
And then China or Russia and the United States destroyed most of their large stockpile, very, very, very large stockpiles in the tens of thousands,
Yep.
and then reduced them to a few thousand, which is still much larger than any of these other nuclear states.
Hmm.
The problem now going forwards, if we scrap all these like agreements, is that China is going to start developing their nuclear weapons again, and they want to have parity to the thousands that Russia and the United States have. And if that happens, then all agreements in the future will have to be trilateral as opposed to bilateral, which is much harder.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. I got distracted. But yes, you're 100% correct.
So nuclear proliferation going forwards is going to be harder, and nuclear proliferation has kind of been frozen because China wasn't addressed in like not developing intermediate range ballistic missiles. So
Hmm.
they developed them outside of America and Russia's agreements, but it's not really been an issue because China's only had a few hundred missiles. So now China will develop thousands of missiles without any of these prior restraints. And so now any further reduction in proliferation, like within a country, greater and greater stockpiles,
Hmm.
is going to be harder and harder as time goes on.
Yeah.
And so proliferation is facing a pretty difficult future as time goes on. Is not a good setup.
Yeah, I just hope that they, at some point, they're able to get China in on it. Um, I don't know if anyone else is really in a position to expand their expand their arsenal that much, either by motivation or by capacity than China. So even if you could just get the three of them in on it, they're kind of the three with the ability to destroy the world with nukes. So
Hmm.
hopefully they can at least get to that.
I don't know. It's also memey because it reminds me of the nuclear doomsday clock or whatever.
Yeah,
And the doomsday clock got sidetracked, is now obsessed with global warming. And so right now is like seconds to midnight or some stupid shit because nobody cares about it anymore because it
yeah.
completely, it's not about nukes anymore.
It's about global warming.
It's about my global warming.
Well, global warming. Okay.
How many
Um.
seconds to midnight are we?
I think we're all the seconds to midnight.
We're 89 seconds to midnight.
Oh, is that what it's at?
Yeah, because they changed because they started because they changed it to be about global warming and nukes at the same time. Then they said global warming is way bigger danger than nukes, and so they set it down to be lesser than at any point in the Cold War because they consider global warming worse than nukes. And then they completely lost relevance and they changed it from minutes to seconds now.
Is that a way to try to like scare boomers who are used to it
I don't
being in
know.
minutes?
Yes. Well, they completely watered down their system because they think that global warming is more important than nukes. So all the previous thing was the biggest was 2 minutes to midnight, and now
Was that
or it
Cuban
was three
Missile
minutes to
Crisis?
midnight. Cuban Missile Crisis. What was because they didn't do Cuban Missile Crisis
Or was it made
independently.
because of the Cuban Missile Crisis?
No, when it was the lowest was when the United States and the Soviet Union were both. It was 2 minutes to midnight in the actual Cold War era because they both had hydrogen bombs at the same time.
Right.
That was the weakest time because they don't respond to
Oh, okay.
um,
Events?
individual incidents. They responded to proliferation in general.
Right.
And so now they completely thrown that out of the window and got onto the global warming bandwagon. And they said global warming is worse than nuclear proliferation ever was, and then just said global warming is worse than the Cold War in general. And so they like set it in the hottest moment of the Cold War. And they're like, that's because of global warming and completely watered down and destroyed their entire system for
Hmm.
political signaling.
That's cool.
Yep. And that's really bad, right? Because nuclear proliferation is just getting buried because the real issue is the Maldives might their water table is getting messed up, and their water table will be worse in
I mean,
2100.
I think there it is like I just don't think they should be put together because they're just kind of fundamentally different things to me. But I might
Yeah,
just be a
I
boomer or
mean,
something.
right? Yeah, I don't know. I don't. But this is the general wokeification and Western cultures
Everything
cultural
has to be
revolution.
fake and gay.
Yeah, Teen Vogue is about it's not about hairstyles, it's about Karl Marx.
Is it?
Yeah, there so I think it's Teen Vogue is the magazine that a bunch of people follow because it doesn't talk about girls' hairstyles as teenagers or what clothes you should wear or what purse is cool. It talks about how to have anal sex with your lesbian partner or
Okay.
how to be a they them.
Makes sense to me. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yep. Anyway, I hope that this was a fun stream.
Oh
We
no, this was a
didn't
fun stream.
stay
We
too
covered a
hard
lot of
on
stuff.
topic.
No, we
Yeah.
covered a lot of stuff that I think needed to be covered. Um,
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, man, for coming on.
Oh yeah, thank you.
As always, everybody, check out Serp's channel. He's putting some stuff up. Check out Piss Earth. Um, it's a fun book, and support content creators. So God bless everybody.